Hello there, all my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and today I'm going to show you how to make this beaded knots chain. Now it's a pretty simple and easy technique, so you can quite quickly build up your chain. And of course you can use it as it is for either a bracelet or a necklace that's nice and elegant, or you can use it for a pendant where you customize it to match. So if you want to learn how to make your own chain, then keep watching. So it's these materials that we're going to be needing. First of all, the wire that I'm using is a regular round silver coated copper wire, and it's a 0.8 mil. So this is going to be used for each of the individual links. Then as for the beads, I'm using these 3mm rounds, and these specific ones are purple coated hematite. Now regardless of what beads you use, you just need to make sure the holes are large enough to take your wire through. And then finally, I just have my findings here, so I have lots of claw clasp and extended chain, and of course some jump rings as well, but you can use whatever kind of clasp that you want to. So make sure you check the description box below the video for the material list and any other information you might need. Otherwise, let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. Then we need to cut our wire. Now personally what I like to do is cut a long length of wire and then work with that as we're making a chain here. So for each link I'm going to keep using the same wire basically. And every time I make a link I'm going to go to the middle of the wire. Then you're going to be left with two lengths on either side. You can go to the middle of that and you keep working on that until you run out of it. For me, I just find it's a better way to have less wastage. You can also just cut short lengths. In this case here I just have a short length to show you with, but I personally prefer to work with the long lengths. So grab your wire here and then go to the middle of it. Then we need to start making that little knot first of all. So I'm going to kind of point it upwards in this direction, and the wire that's going upwards and away from me, I'm going to gently bring down and put a curve into it, and then bring the end over the other one, so that goes over, and then just bring it down a bit so we have something that looks a bit like this. And then I'm going to take the other end and then bring that around like this to bring it over the other one there, the other end, and then bring it down underneath that loop that we made first to then have the end come up through the loop. So make sure it comes up through there, and that is basically the shape of the knot. Now obviously this is kind of loose, so what we need to do now is tighten it up. So you just gradually pull on one end at a time, making sure that the knot stays in the shape it has, and we're just making it gradually tighter here. Now we don't want to pull it all the way tight until we can't pull it anymore, because we need to add in those beads as well, but just a bit more. And what you can also do is, because sometimes it can be a little bit hard to kind of get hold of the wire to pull it properly, especially if you're working with a short length, so you can grab the wire with some pliers and then help pull with that. That's really going to get a better grip, and just gently tighten it up until the knot there is about even. You tighten that a little bit more. Now I don't want to go too far, like I said, because we need to add the beads, so there need to be space for that. What you can also do is, if you feel like the knot has lost a little bit of its shape, you can always use pliers to just help the shape along. So if you need to adjust anything, I recommend doing that before we just add the beads in. So you can straighten anything out or help maneuver anything in place. You can get in there better as well with pliers rather than your fingers. So this one just needs pushing in a little bit more. Then we have something a little bit like that. Now it's time to put the beads in. So we have these ends of the wire going out in opposite directions. Just make sure it's smoothed out so we can actually get the beads on there. Then we just take one at a time, grab one bead and add that onto one side first, and then this is coming over the top of that other wire there, it's crossing over. So I'm gonna lift it a bit and then push the bead down to basically go into the loop. And this is why you don't want to make the knot too tight, because then the bead won't fit into it. So just leave it nicely open. It doesn't have to be perfect yet, because we can still adjust it after we add the beads in. But then push that into that little loop. Now turn it around, grab the other bead, add it to the other end of the wire, and then push that down. Now this one comes under, or you can flip it around, it doesn't really matter. Just push it down into that empty loop and then help push it in place, and we can smooth it out again. And then this is where we can just adjust it. Again, if you need to, you can grab your pliers, get a better grip. If you need to tighten it up a little bit, always keep hold of the knot and then pull at the wire, just to make sure it's nice and even and it's as tight as it possibly can be. And you can see there, it just kind of pulled over the bead a bit. So if it does that, make sure you push it back down, just to literally sit snugly around the beads, because we don't want them to kind of be able to fall off or anything, because there's also those loops that actually lock the beads in place. So make any adjustments. You can use your pliers as well to help, like I said, maneuver anything, tighten anything up. You can actually, if you need to tighten it around the bead there, you can go in like this as well. But then when you have them in place, all we need to do now is then use these ends to actually make the wrap loops. Now the first thing we have to do is straighten up the ends there, because right now they're coming out from that knot at kind of an angle on either side. So what we actually want is them to come out more or less straight from the ends. So I'm just going to take my chain nose pliers, or flat nose, and then right where you can get the pliers down to on that end of the wire, start putting a bend into it so it comes more straight out like this. So you can see the difference there. And of course do the same on the other side as well, just so we can obviously put the lengths together and it becomes one length of chain. So something a little bit like that. Adjust it as much as you need to. And then we gotta make the wrapped loops. So what I like to do is, on this side here, I place my pliers on the wire there, so this beaded, the little knot with the beads in, it lays sideways. And then I go up a little bit above where that loop is, so we have a bit of wire left, a bit of space on that wire. And I put a bend into it. And then I take my 6-step bell making pliers, because I then know using that same step on them, it's going to make sure I always get the same size loop. But you can also use round nose pliers. Place them right where I put that bend, and then bring the wire around to make a full circle, something a bit like that. Then I go back to my chain nose and I put them on top of that circle. Then I take the tail here and wrap it around below the circle or the loop, and then basically fill in that space that we left on the wire. So wrap it a couple of times until I then have no more space, and then wrap it over the top there. And then to finish it off, I'm going to take my flush cutters, cut off the excess, but making sure I cut it off so the little end that's going to be left, I'll show you here, when I then squeeze that down, like I'll always do with the ends of the wire, so we can't feel it and it doesn't scratch on anything, it's going to be more or less hidden and go up against the wire of the loop there, so hidden just behind that. So that's that one end. Now on the other end, I'm going to also make a wrap loop, but I'm going to do it in the opposite direction. This is just how I like to put this chain together. So I then place my pliers on that wire, and it's now flat rather than sideways. Again, go up a little bit above where that loop is. Not too far, but not too little space either. Then put a bend into it. You need to make the circle. Now obviously if you're making your very first link, you just want to fully complete it So make this fully wrapped loop as well. But because making each link is the same, I'm just going to show you now how to actually attach them together. So this is just my kind of routine of doing it. You can find your own way. But then as I'm doing this second wrap loop on this side, I want to make sure I attach this before I obviously close it up. Now just make sure it's a little bit open here, if you need to open it with your pliers. And then I've already prepared a bit of a chain here that I've got going. I'm going to show you how I attach it. Before I close up that wrap loop, I also like to lay my links so they're the same because they're slightly different. For example, if I flip this over, you can see that they're slightly different from each other, how they cross over and under. That's personal preference, but I like them to all lay in the same direction, which means that I line them up first, and then I bring this down as if it's going to continue. Then you have to flip it around and then put it onto that open wire and then slide it into the open circle, the open loop there. And then when they're attached, they lay in the same direction. Now leave that there. Then I have chain those pliers again, squeeze down on the open circle, the loop, and then same principle, we just want to close it up by wrapping the end of the wire here around that little space that we're left. And then again, same principle as before, cut off the excess when you wrapped a few times. And we then squeeze the end down and it gets hidden right behind where the loop is and tucks it away nicely. So there we go. Now it's also attached, and you basically just keep, then you start a new link, and then obviously before you make that second wrap loop, before you complete it, you want to then attach it together, and you create a chain however long you want it to be that looks a little something like that with those nice little beads inside of the knot. And then once you made your length of chain that you want, you can just use those wrap loops on the ends as well to attach your findings. So this is what it looks like. I have my lobster claw clasp and extended chain. So that's how you make this beaded knots chain. You can either use it for a simple bracelet and necklace, or have it as a lovely feature for a pendant. Now I've made several other chain designs as well, so I'm going to have a playlist with all those tutorials in them, so you can check that out if you like making chains. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.